Hello and welcome to Newsclick. Today we are discussing the forthcoming elections to the Delhi Assembly, and we have with us Shankar Raghuraman of the Times of India. Hi Shankar, welcome.
Thank you.
Let me begin by asking you to stick your neck out and make a prediction as to the outcome of the Delhi elections.
Yeah, well, it is a serious risk sticking your neck out on this one, because there is a new player in the game who it's very difficult for anybody to really quantify at this stage. But I do not see either the Congress or the BJP really capturing the imagination of the people. If I had to stick my neck out, I would say it's a hung assembly.
Since you've brought in the issue of the new player, we'll discuss that in a little more detail. But if we take the two major players, the incumbent and what is assumed to be the natural opposition, the BJP, would it be right to say that the incumbent Congress has, to some extent at least, lost a great deal of the support that it had enjoyed for 3 terms till now?
Yes, absolutely. I think that would be a perfectly fair statement. And to my mind, the single biggest factor in that has been the continuous spell of inflation that we witnessed, not just in Delhi but all over the country. But in Delhi, because you have both the center and the local government being ruled by the Congress, so it's, there is nobody you can pass the buck on to.
Sure. So in a sense, the Delhi assembly elections are going to reflect both on the Delhi government as well as on the central government.
Yes. In fact, it might well be more of a reflection on the impact of some of the economic policies of the center than on Delhi per se.
So given that, why should one not expect that the challenger at the central government, that's the BJP, why is it not able to capitalize on this disenchantment with the Congress?
Raghu, I would actually flip that question and say, should we then conclude from the fact that the apparent challenger is unable to mount an effective challenge in Delhi, should we then conclude that this actually reflects the national picture and that the media and many other commentators are getting it wrong when they are trying to project the national elections as a Modi versus Rahul Gandhi battle?
Right.
My suspicion is that what you are seeing in Delhi is really a reflection of the larger national mood, where there is a disillusionment, a disenchantment with the Congress, but there isn't a corresponding shift towards the BJP.
Precisely, that's precisely the point I was making. So would you think that that's a fair characterization of the public mood in Delhi, that although they are disenchanted with the Congress, they don't really feel motivated enough to vote for the main opposition party, the BJP?
Absolutely. I think the very fact that the Aam Aadmi Party has become a phenomenon, let's leave it at that for the time being. How big a phenomenon, we don't know, but the very fact that it has become a phenomenon is a reflection of this popular mood, which is anti-Congress and yet is not willing to become pro-BJP in order to be anti-Congress.
Right. And to what extent is that a reflection also of the fact that what we have been witnessing in Delhi for the last 3 elections in the assembly is, despite a public disenchantment with the Congress, they are not able to find an expression for their disenchantment given the disarray in the BJP ranks?
Yes, the disarray in the BJP's ranks is certainly an important part of that party's inability to mount a challenge. But I think it's also the fact that the BJP, at least in the last 2 elections, was unable to connect with the public mood. For instance, I remember that one of the important issues that they raised in the 2008 elections was parking problems. This gives you a very good idea of how disconnected they are with the larger reality of Delhi.
Sure. Okay. We've talked about the 2 main contenders, and can I assume then that your gut feeling is that although you say there's going to be a hung assembly, you see the BJP and the Congress as being the 2 major players numerically, or do you see the third new player actually posing a numerical challenge to either of these two?
I would think that it would not pose a numerical challenge in terms of the number of seats it wins, but perhaps in terms of vote share, it will be a substantial chunk.
And to what do you attribute this sudden emergence of the Aam Aadmi Party to capture the public imagination to such an extent that, as you said, even in terms of vote share, that it actually poses a major challenge to the two main parties?
To my mind, it is in a sense stepping into a void created by this make-believe contest between the two main parties. If things had reached a point where people were really beginning to wonder what the choice is. I mean, is there really a difference between the two? Is there a meaningful choice that we are speaking of? So I think in some sense the objective situation was ripe for a third alternative to emerge. It happened to be the Aam Aadmi Party in this case. It could have been somebody else. In fact, even if you look at the 2008 elections in Delhi, already the BSP was emerging as a sizable player. I mean, BSP got almost 15% of the vote in Delhi last time, which is just a little under half of what the BJP got.
Let me pursue that line of thinking a little further. We've had challenges to the two main parties before. You've got regional parties in different states. You've had attempts by the regional parties to get together and pose themselves as a national alternative. But I think most observers would agree that they have also not really been able to capture the public imagination as an alternative. And yet the Aam Aadmi Party, which is a completely new phenomenon of what may be described as political upstarts, seem to have been able to capture the public. Why is that?
Raghu, if you look at the states, you have often seen phenomenon of this sort.
Yes.
You know, N.T. Rama Rao emerged out of nowhere to become a force in Andhra Pradesh. The Assam agitation led to the AGP emerging as a force. In Tamil Nadu, you have had, you know, even as recently as the last election, you've had the DMDK of Vijaykant emerging as a force. In Maharashtra, you have the MNS now emerging as a. So in the states, this kind of thing tends to keep happening. The problem in when you look at the all India picture is that while it is easy for somebody to develop pockets of influence in the state, in a particularly in the smaller states, to translate that into anything meaningful at the all India level is obviously a task of a much greater scale.
So we should see the Aam Aadmi Party phenomenon as a Delhi state level.
At the moment, I don't think it reflects. But having said that, I think if the Aam Aadmi Party does reasonably well in Delhi, it will puncture this whole assumption of the, you know, it's a Modi versus Rahul election. Sure. And people in other metropolises in particular will also start thinking about, can there be a third alternate?
I've heard some commentators forecasting that if the Aam Aadmi Party does well in Delhi, whether you measure does well by seats or vote percentage, they would be tempted to replicate the Delhi phenomenon in other metropolitan cities in the coming Lok Sabha elections. Do you see that happening?
They might well be tempted to do it, but I doubt very much whether they will be able to replicate this performance. Because let's not forget that in Delhi, the Aam Aadmi Party may be a new phenomenon, but some of the activists who are the key to that party, like Arvind Kejriwal, have been working on the ground for many, many years on various issues. So there is a certain credibility of a track record of having worked on the ground, which you bring to the table here in Delhi. In a Chennai or a Bombay or a Calcutta, you don't have that same credibility.
Let me ask you a final question on the Aam Aadmi Party. You've spoken of the emergence of these regional parties, sometimes out of nothing. In many of these states, there has also been, in the not too distant time frame, a setting in of some disillusionment with these new forces and third forces. There seem to be signs with the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi maybe because of the scale of ambitious projection of their own image, a hype, if you like, that there may be some signs of a dissolution already setting in. Do you see that?
It is possible that, you see, as you said, the hype was such that it was being portrayed as some kind of,
messianic force.
Like the perfect storm, as if there could be nothing possibly wrong with this party. And that clearly was not a sustainable proposition. I mean, surely if you want to overnight develop a political structure which extends across all 70 constituencies in Delhi, you will have to perforce take on board people about whose credentials you are not entirely sure, and somewhere along the line some of them will prove to be liabilities. So yes, that process does seem to have begun, but it's inevitable.
A last question. If there is a hung assembly in Delhi and the Aam Aadmi Party emerges as the potential balancing force, the one that can tip the scales, so far the Aam Aadmi Party is on record saying they will support neither party. So what are the implications of that?
Well, I would believe them when they say that, not necessarily because I think they are men of such extremely high principle that they could not possibly go back on a promise, but because it makes political sense for them not to support either. Their whole claim to existence is the fact that they do not want to do business by the normal rules of the game.
Sure.
So they have to distinguish themselves from the BJP and the Congress and parties of that kind. So their best bet is refuse to support anybody. Nobody can then form a government. So you perhaps have 6 months of president's rule followed by another round of elections. And this time around, they'll start off with the advantage of people knowing that they are serious players.
Sure.
Whereas in the current elections, they still have to prove that. So a lot of people who might want to vote for them will not vote for them because they're not sure that they are seriously in the game.
So of the 4 states going to elections now in assembly, Delhi seems to offer the most promise for surprises and a very different kind of outcome.
Absolutely. And also I think Delhi is the most significant in terms of being a pointer to what could possibly happen in 2014. Much more so than either Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh or Rajasthan.
Where we think the election
local factors are much more important than.
Thank you very much, Shankar. I think we should meet again after the assembly elections in Delhi.
Certainly. Thanks.